Well, I think I might be live. I'm not necessarily sure. So I'm going to hang out just a minute until I see whether or not we have someone here. We're going to be taking a look at the Winding Way template today. I've had a special request to show you how to use it, and so we are going to do that. I'm going to just kind of keep on going here, and if we have someone show up, then we'll have someone show up. And if not, then we will have completed our video. So I'm going to mark off an area that would kind of represent where our block edges would be. And I don't have a real big quilt sandwich here. And this template stitches out a 5-inch pattern. So it's going to be a little tight, but I think we can do it. We aren't going to necessarily do a whole entire quilt, so that's not a problem. Let's continue my block edge going across the page, and we'll see what happens here. So I'm really just putting some marks on, just kind of for some border references. It's not really vital that we have them. If we were doing a quilt, then we would have some sort of an edge to it. And so that's all I'm doing, is just kind of marking out. I don't even know what the measurements are. And hopefully I'm not too close to this outer edge to be able to do some stitching. But we're going to find out. So let's just extend this line here on down a little ways. And we're just about ready to roll. We're going to take a look here in just a second at what the template is and what comes with it and what you have immediate access to. It's really an easy template to use. I've included the stitch path, and you just keep your foot in it and travel around and get to where you're going. So let me move this out of the way. Kind of close quarters working here, so I know you can bear with me on that. So here's the packaging that comes with the template. This is the cover on that. Let's see here, my light is too bright. It's available in 3 different machine sizes, the low, high, and the long arm. And on the back side of this cover explains what all the markings are for. I try to include this on all of my templates because without that, it's a little more complicated for you to figure out what we're supposed to do. The red represents our stitching, and the others just kind of point to what the marks mean. And then up here at the top shows this would be 2 repeats of our pattern side by side. There also is the written instructions on how to create the centerpiece. This is 22 by 25, and you can also get that off my website if you want a bigger version, but this comes with the template. And then just another printout of that. And this is the instructions on how to use it. So if we were doing just a side-to-side row, it really is pretty easy. We start at A, follow the path all the way around all the little peninsulas until we get to B, and then we spin the template in place and repeat until we get back to A and spin it again. This section here, so this is for a continuous row. This section here would be how we might want to create a fill pattern and little slight offsets in there. So this top row is the same as what we have up here in the continuous row, and then you would want to travel in the ditch or along your seam edge or outside in your margin until you would be in the location to start your reverse row going back. And what we show here is our first pattern is in the broken lines, and then when we spin the template and create our second pattern, it is the solid. And so you can see we have broken and solid and broken and solid. But when we start our second row, we start in the center here and only do a partial pattern. But when it's all finished working across, it still flows in the same manner as our continuous row. But what I've done in this way, we are offsetting where our spaces are slightly. If you didn't want to do that, we could go from A to B and then slide it back around and go from A to B again. It really comes out about the same way. So let's stitch it out, and I'm going to check real quick like and see if I have any questions or comments yet before I am not able to see what we're doing. Oh my goodness, I had a couple ladies on here saying that they were late, and honestly, you really weren't, because this isn't something that was planned. I had noticed that some people were interested in how the Winding Way template works, and it's something that I think you probably can't get too many instructions on. I have done a video on it, and that's available in the university. But to be honest with you, I think that some people have a hard time getting to that video, and I don't have a problem doing another quick one here because we're just going to explain what we're doing. So you're not late if you're just getting here. You're right on time. So what we show, hold on just a second here. What we show in the instructions is to simply put the template in place. Now, let's take a look at it for just a minute here. Seems like you're awfully close. We have an A and a B, and this is my vertical alignment line and a horizontal. There also are diagonals, and then in a couple of spots there's even some previous stitch marks. I have these diagonals in here just in case you wanted to work in this direction and have a little bit of a different look to it. You would then go diagonally as you stitch, because our A and B is still in the same place, but we would have diagonal rows rather than horizontal. I think until you use the template a couple of times, you might want to just do it this way. I did not mark a horizontal line. You could, if you wanted to have everything real precise, but one of the great things about the meandering template is that it's very forgiving, and you don't have to be real super exact and precise in all of your spacing. If you've ever tried to do free motion stippling, especially on a large scale, you're going to know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to go with it. We are going to watch where we are and match up from there. So you can see here's my marked lines, and those are going to be our border lines. So right up here is a horizontal line, and that is where the top of our stitches would come. So I'm going to put that right on my marked line, and over here where the A is, I'm going to set that as my side edge. And so this way we will actually come right up to our spaces and fill it as we go. So let's get in position. I think that anytime we're working this close to the edge of the fabric, it's always a little bit more challenging. So let's see if we can do that. I had to change my bobbin since I was working on a different project and was almost out of thread. So it takes a second here to get going. So I hope everyone's having a great Thanksgiving Day, doing whatever you do, especially in this situation. And I know I have a couple of my little friends from up north on here, and so today's not your Thanksgiving, but I hope you celebrate it with us too. So a couple of little stitches almost in place right there, not a lot of movement. You can see here that our foot is just the same width as what the path is. So we don't wobble side to side. You don't have to worry about lean this way and lean that way. I do want to caution you though, when you're going around these peninsulas, I kind of hold them down. Now I have a low shank template here that I'm working with. It's thinner. It doesn't matter what you use. I just happen to have a low shank template right here, but it's a little thinner, of course, than the other. And so you just want to kind of hang on to those so you don't push on them too much, because you can actually move your template out of the way. So see how we now stitch right along and come right up to our edge. And I keep at least one hand on here all the time without moving it around, even if I need to rotate my fabric, and that way I'm not going to lose my positioning. If I take both hands off, it's just too easy for that to happen. And working this close to the edge, sometimes I find I need to hold on to the fabric, which is right now all underneath the template. So I'll put my fingers in the stitch path where I've already been. Have to not run over your fingers, of course. So if you have a bigger piece of fabric or a project that you're working on, it really is a lot easier. This real small one does make it a little bit difficult. You can see I have several pieces of staple tape on here. They're only about a 1/2 inch in size, but there's lots of parts and my hands move around, so I need key touch points all over the place. But we just travel through the stitch path until we get over to our B location. And once we get to B, we can't go any farther. That's the end of our trail. We're going to spin the template around and we're still in place. But look right here, these are previous stitches. So even though we haven't marked a line over there, we can still line up with that and go straight across. not straight across, but across our fabric. So one thing, it hasn't really been advertised out there, but I'll share with you since we're on here, as my holiday special. When you make a purchase of $100 or more from my website, then you will also, as a gift from me, be eligible for a free basic marking tool. Now that's the basic marker, and it's a 4 by 12 inch, not the 12 by 12. So Steady has not advertised that yet, and what I believe they are going to be advertising is that it would have to be of the DMQuilting templates, but as far as I'm concerned, $100 is $100, and so anything from my website would qualify. So look where we are now. We're over to the seam, yet we're not all the way there. So what I'm going to do is put a little mark right here. So I know that's where I need to stitch down to so I can complete this pattern to get back over here. But I have to turn the template or maneuver it, and whatever you're most comfortable with works. You can actually turn it this way and just kind of go down the path. And that would just be stitching in the ditch. Once we get back over here, then we have to find out where we line up. Right back on our etch lines again, and we can continue. Like I said, it's real forgiving on how your placement has to be just exact. Well, that's not necessarily correct, because it's meandering. It's a very large stipple. So here we are now at the edge, and I will come over and remove it. So here's how it would look when you come over to your seam line. We have a partial pattern on that edge over there. When we get finished, I'll take it out from under the needle, and you can see. So because we have a half of a pattern right here where we finished our edge, it was only half there, we want a full pattern, which would be offset like this. And you can see with the template how our path goes. You really can just position it wherever you want to. You could come right back over here, because the half we stitched was the second half. This would be the first half, in order to get our pattern aligned, because we don't really have to align in any set way. We just make it match wherever we want to. Just want to be real careful not to be too close in our other spots. So now I'm going to make a mark. I don't know if you can see this, way down here. So this is where my needle would be at my B location, and I will simply stitch in the ditch down to that spot. If you want to use the edge of the template to help you travel, then that's great. And put it back in. And now we are at B. Let's turn this around so you can see a little bit better. What I want to show you over here, we know that our foot is going to come right up to this edge here, but we are going to have a 1/4 inch clearance from the edge of that template. And so that means our stitching would be over about here where my pointer is. But when we look at our space here, that's about what we have there. It's about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch. So as long as you're not right on top of it or crisscrossing, I think you're going to be fine. And here, this shows this line. This is where the top edge of our stitches go. And so as long as we stay below, away from where our previous stitches are over here, then we're going to be good to go. So let's just work our way back around. This always makes me think of the little Tonka trucks that my brother always played with as a little boy. And he had his little roadway. So this isn't something, because of all the curves, this is not something that you're going to want to do really super fast. It doesn't take a long time because it's actually quite easy to do, but you're just not going to want to go super fast on your machine, I don't think. And here we are, ready to spin around. So we spin the template in place right around the foot. Template started sliding, that's why I had to stop in position here. So if you wanted exact placement going across, you could mark the horizontal line and follow that. I didn't really do that. I like it not doing that, and I just simply use the previous marks just as guides. It's not something you have to have there. They're just kind of guidelines. So here I'm back at my seam. I have a little section down here that I want to fill in. So I will, let's maneuver around this way. And now to find out where I need to go. Sometimes that's the tricky part. So once you get to this point here, we're back at the seam edge again, and I'm just going to cut my thread so we can take that out and look at it. But if we wanted to do our next row down here, just travel down the seam until we get to that location. Once we have everything stitched, you can then come back in and do whatever you want. If you wanted to stitch it again, I was playing with it one day and did some offsets with it, and let me kind of show you. We're not going to do it, but so I then position the template down here. It gives me some extra little crisscrosses over it. Oh, I turned it this way. And went over again with it about an inch down. And I did cross over a lot of my lines, but that's okay. If you wanted to have a little bit heavier fill, then that's an option of what you can do to accomplish that. So when we take a look at this, here's where we started, right over here. Let's turn it back around. So we started right here and traveled across over to the edge and down and then back across. So you can see it does go quickly. It isn't something that's going to take forever to accomplish, but it's kind of an easy way to do that, and you get a real nice texture to your quilt. Let's see what we have on the back. And the back looks just as good. So let me take a look at the questions real quick and see if there's anything we need to talk about. Well, it looks like we don't have any questions, and so with that being said, I hope that this answers the questions of the ladies from earlier in the day that were wanting to see how it works. So I guess that's it. We have just done a real quick little sample demo on use of the winding wave and how we would go over and travel down to start our second row and work our way back. So we had no thread breaks. I did cut my thread once I got over here to the end, but we could have gone on and completed the whole project without doing that. So if you wanted to cut at the end of your row and come back and repeat exactly, you could. There's nothing wrong with that. If you don't want to, you don't have to. If you don't want to mark it, you don't even have to do that. You can see here we didn't. What you do want to remember though is our stitch path, our stitch pattern is 5 inches. So center would be 2.5. So if we mark a horizontal line across here for our center placement, that's going to be at 2.5 inches from our edge. When we get ready to mark our second one down, we need to be at least 5 inches, but if you went to 5.5 inches, then that would give you a little bit more clearance in through the middle. We didn't really do anything other than just kind of guess at it, and it's about 1/4 of an inch or so here. So if you went from your first row, center line would be at 2.5 inches. If you wanted to mark for your second center line, that would be 5 inches from this one, plus whatever spacing you want to have in here. If you wanted 1/4 of an inch, that would be 5.25 or 5.5 or whatever you wanted. So I hope this helps. I hope that we answered the questions that the ladies had, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. This is Donna McCauley in the DMQuilting studio, signing off for now. Bye-bye, everyone.